Today, using a variety of mods, shaders, and resource packs, I'm going to focus on making Minecraft really immersive. It's going to look beautiful, it's going to sound beautiful, it might even feel beautiful, or at least hot. Your computer may be working overtime running this set of mods, so fair warning. And anyway, if you like what you see, you should, subscribe and stuff. And I've also got a pretty exciting video coming out towards the end of next week, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, let's get started. To begin, you must install Sodium and Iris. Shocker, I know. The basis of this entire video revolves around shaders, so these two are a must. We'll be focusing on two shaders specifically. Those would be Shrimple and Rethinking Voxels. You'll soon see that both of them look absolutely amazing, and it's really going to come down to preference as to which one you use. So we'll dive into Shrimple first. At its default settings, it's a solid shader, but the real good stuff is hiding underneath. Most importantly, you'll want to set the main profile to RTX. With the click of a button, lighting goes from Vanilla Plus to highly realistic real fast, and this just completely changes the look of any remotely dark scene in the game. And obviously, changing the profile made some massive changes, but before we make any more adjustments, we're gonna quickly skip ahead and add our resource pack. This time around, I've once again selected Patrix, and I played around with some other options, but Patrix just does way too good of a job here. Towards the end of the video, I'll provide some alternatives if you'd like, but the combination I've settled on just looks way too good to not use. And by the way, in order to get Patrix looking as intended, you'll need to install continuity so the textures can actually connect, otherwise they'll look like this. Plus, you'll also need entity model features and entity texture features for the custom mob animations. So turning our attention back to Shrimple again, right now it's kind of configured so that reflections and all that good stuff are pretty much expecting you to be using the default resource pack. But obviously we're not doing that, so head to the materials section and switch every one of these settings to lab PBR. And just like that, another massive change to your visuals. Before, the textures were relatively flat and reflectionless. Now they look textured and tangible and moist. And the great thing is, this really won't affect your FPS all that much. Easily worth it. I'll tell you what will come for your FPS though, lava. You'll be under the illusion that your FPS is respectable. Then suddenly you'll find yourself here and your FPS is gonna be like cut in half. There is a decent fix though. Once again, in shader settings, head to lighting, trace, then block lights, and here you can switch lava lighting to emit rather than traced. And this reverts lava to the more basic form of lighting that we started with, salvaging your crippled frame rates. And same goes for the other options in this category. I'd say the second biggest defender is glowberries. They'll definitely come for you too. And this won't look as good as traced, but generally when you have a multitude of illuminated blocks like you get in a massive lava pool, the realistic shadows aren't quite as noticeable. They can be for sure, but probably not enough to warrant the FPS loss. Anyway, next you should enable global illumination. This setting can provide some serious visual improvements, and the FPS drop is surprisingly negligible. Certainly worth it. And finally, I've also turned on the water texture setting, as I've found Shrimple's water to be a little too clear to the point it's sometimes borderline invisible. So we've got Shrimple all set up and ready to go. Now I'll show you the other option. Rethinking Voxels provides the best dynamic shadows I've ever seen from a shader. Shrimples are quite good, don't get me wrong, but Rethinking Voxels are incredible. These shadows will show up on pretty much everything. Mobs, item drops, dripstone, yourself. There's nothing even remotely comparable. In order to get handheld dynamic lighting to work though, you'll need to set dynamic handheld lighting to normal. You'll also want to set cave lighting to very dark, which will make those beautiful shadows really stand out. And plus, just like Shrimple, you'll need to set RP support to lab PBR, otherwise the textures just won't live up to their potential. Now, as I mentioned before, it isn't issue free. The shadows, while spectacular, can get fairly glitchy at times. Visual oddities are pretty common, and like Shrimple, your frame rate gets taken out back and slaughtered whenever lava makes itself present. Problem is, there isn't quite as good of a solution here. You can lower the light spread distance for a solid FPS boost, but this will shorten the light casting distance of everything, even your handheld torch. You could also try lowering the max light sample count option, but I found this makes those strange visual artifacts even more noticeable. Overall though, this shader looks genuinely amazing, and it's up to you to decide whether or not the drawbacks are worth it. If your game runs at an FPS that you're happy with and the visual bugs don't bother you too much, absolutely go for it. Overall, each of these shaders just have their own strengths. Shrimple has better material reflections, brighter lights, and general reliability, whereas Rethinking Voxels absolutely dominates the dynamic shadows, has really nice fog, but also has some pretty noticeable visual flaws. So the choice is yours to make, one or the other, or just switch between them constantly. It's what I'm gonna be doing. So now we're gonna work on making yourself more immersed in the world, pretty much a bunch of animations and stuff. You'll see. So I've added first person model, allowing you to see yourself in first person, and this will be quite important for all of the mods in this section. Now, to add some animations, we'll be including not enough animations, and with this mod installed, you can see yourself eat and drink, climb ladders, ride a horse, row your boat, so on. And normally, this mod is only visible in third third person, but we installed first person model. So now all of these wonderful animations are now visible for your eyes to enjoy in first person. And very importantly, it'll make you actually hold your torch in front of you rather than limply at your side. You'll also want to install Extended Lantern Resource Pack, making your handheld torch 3D. And this is pretty important. Your torch is going to be in front of you quite often now, and it looks kind of stupid when it's flat. You should also install the eating animation mod. It'll make it feel as if you're actually consuming something. So yeah, we'll toss that in here as well. And of course, for utmost immersion, we must install the trustworthy camera overhaul mod. Now your camera will tilt and rock in the direction of your movement. And I've even increased a few of the settings to really make the effects stand out. I've also decided to include the just zoom mod. If you set it so it only zooms a little farther than what you normally see, it almost acts as kind of a focus button. Personally, I find it very satisfying. And the final mod I'll be adding from this section is serious player animations. If not enough animations was not enough animations, this mod will fill the gaps. Pretty much every movement you can do has been visually replaced in some form. And you know, the great thing between this mod and not enough animations is if there's an animation you don't really like, you can just disable it. Essentially everything between the two mods is customizable. Alright, now that we've made the visual and gameplay portions more immersive, the next portion of mods are mainly going to be focusing on audio. As I said before, this isn't just going to look immersive, it's going to sound immersive as well. For starters, I've included the Dynamic Surroundings mod. Dynamic Surroundings is loaded with great features. For example, caves will echo, completely changing the atmosphere underground. Rushing water makes a true consistent sound now, making waterfalls actually feel real. It's got biome and location dependent ambience to liven up your world even more, breathing particles, steam, lava jets, it just keeps going. All in all, Dynamic Surroundings is essentially the audio backbone of this mod list, and you know, also has some pretty sweet visual effects as well. This list would also be incomplete without Presence Footsteps, as it overhauls the sound of walking on or through most of the blocks in the game. It's a pretty huge improvement over vanilla Minecraft, and again, very, very necessary for what I'm trying to accomplish here. Placing and breaking blocks in Minecraft could also use a little enhancing as well. In recent updates, new blocks have been added to the game that sound completely unique when interacting with them, yet the old blocks all just sound pretty much the same. The Quality Sounds mod will do for building what Presence Footsteps does for walking. I've also selected the mod simply titled Sounds to improve the interactive audio. Now, when scrolling through your hotbar or moving items around, you'll hear appropriate sounds depending on the item. And another cool mod, and also the final audio mod I'll be installing, is ImmersiveThunder. Once installed, thunder will behave much more realistically. Lightning strikes in close proximity will be loud and intense, whereas the sound from distant lightning strikes will be delayed and more subdued. Now, real quick, I'm just going to install a couple mods to make mobs a little more immersive. The first of which being spawn animations, which makes it so, rather than just appearing out of nowhere, mobs will crawl out of the ground, and Nif spiders, which makes spiders just spider even harder. Alright, now it's time to make the world itself more immersive. Everything else has been improved, so why not the terrain you'll explore? The main mod we'll be using here is Terralith, which will make a multitude of improvements for us. Obviously, it adds a bunch of really great biomes to the surface, but it also adds a solid amount of biomes underground as well. It also places custom structures throughout your world, and it does all of this without adding any new blocks, which is very important for us since we're using a resource pack. Next, I decided to include pretty much just every Young's Better mod. They all do a great job of making vanilla structures more interesting, so they're definitely worth including. I've also added Cave Dust, which adds some nice drifting particles underground, and you can customize the setting all the way from barely noticeable to just downright dusty. And additionally, I've included the Passable Leaves mod. Once installed, leaves will no longer be a block you can stand on, instead they'll just slow you down. So now I'm going to show you all a few mods that I didn't cover earlier, but are definitely worth potentially including still. The first of these mods being WF's Cave Overhaul, and this mod changes the way caves generate pretty drastically, making them a fair bit more complicated and confusing. It adds some pretty awesome features like these underground rivers, and overall just changes the way you explore caves pretty significantly. Now, one potential downside you may have with the mod is, as far as I can tell, it removes the absolutely massive caverns you sometimes get in the game, and you may see this as a positive or a negative. If it's the former, absolutely install this mod. You could also install the Crawl mod, which simply allows you to assume crawling position on command. Now you can live out your cramped space cave spelunking nightmares as you please. Another great mod, if you'd like to try playing in third person as well, is Leowin's Third Person. Obviously, I mainly focused on first person in this video, but the shaders work great either way. And surprisingly, you can also include distant horizons if you'd like. Both of the shaders support the mod, although the newest version of Rethinking Voxels is required, and that version doesn't seem to cast dynamic shadows on mobs. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'll also show you a few resource packs that I gave a try. Coven, for example, looks pretty solid with this setup, though the frame rate was a little lower than Patrix, and I think Patrix works out better in this mod list anyway. And Pixely is also a decent option if you'd like to stick with the vanilla style. Overall, installing a fair bit of stuff, in my opinion, we've made Minecraft quite a bit more immersive. And if you do anything different, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas. And if you'd like to download any of this, it should all be there in the description. And anyways, if you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.